Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper. The first thing is related to the smart cities. Coming to the smart cities, the government of India, it has launched the smart cities mission. As per this, the government will identify certain cities on a competitive bidding process as the smart cities and will provide for finances. So in this case, the concept of smart cities, it did not come from the urban planners, but it was got from the information technology giants such as Microsoft, Siemens, etc. So they have divided the entire market of the smart cities into 7 segments, especially related to urban governance, education, healthcare, smart buildings, infrastructure like this. So in this case, we need to understand 3 questions related to smart cities. Are they trying to improve the functionality of our cities? And are they going to provide us for the inclusive solutions? And finally, how these smart cities are going to be financed and how the burden is going to be shared. These things need to be analyzed. Now, the first thing when you consider, there will be a special purpose vehicle will be constituted which will manage the affairs of the this particular smart cities. So in this case, this will be managed by a CEO who will be functioning outside the municipal bodies, municipal governing bodies such as municipal corporations. So it means a democratic accountability will be missing in this case. It is an outright outsourcing of the governance to a private entity. And the next is the islands of development. It is not going to improve the functionality of the entire city, but it is going to create certain islands of development over here. So it means the smart city is going to be taken up as a project in a particular area, in a particular locality. Entire city water, sanitation, etc. will not be improved under this. And the financing of the smart cities, it has to come through the investors. So what the central government is saying is, it is an example for the competitive federalism. But if you observe, the Detroit as a city, it has become a ghost city now due to the failure of this particular market borrowings at the city level. So Indian cities also will be exposed to such a risk if they are asked to borrow from the market. Now coming to the 1991 reforms, 25 years of reforms, what the author says is, the reforms in India are a response to a crisis and the leadership has to be given an applaud for this particular strong response. And second, even after that, many of the leaders, they have carried forward the economic reforms. During Deve Gowda era, we have seen a reform of the tax structure in India. During the Vajpayee era, we have seen the development of infrastructure in the form of golden quadrilateral. And UPA 1 government and 2 government, the energy sector has seen tremendous improvement, and now Modi government is trying to restructure the taxes to a much better level. It's also bringing the necessary administrative improvements. But the major problem is the economic reforms are on a fast scale, but however they are not synergized with the governance reforms, that is personal administration or municipal administration. Everything, if you take about, there is no much progress on this. So economic reforms along with the administrative reforms that brings in inclusiveness, it creates an inclusive economy. Coming to health care coverage by Srinath Reddy. Now what he says is, or how we can define the universal health coverage. So universal health coverage can be said as, every person shall be able to get the health services of the choice without incurring a much cost to himself and to the government. Or I can say, the WHO definition of the universal health coverage says, it is a state of affairs where health needs of all citizens, they will be met without any without any excessive costs or financial hardships to them. So in this case, we have 3 things: population coverage, service coverage, and then we have cost coverage. Coming to population coverage, how many people are being covered by a program? And then we have the services coverage. So what are the medical treatments available under universal health coverage? Finally, cost coverage, at what expense? If you take politicians, they want to have equity and wider population to be covered. If you take the medical healthcare professionals, they want more services to be covered under this. And if you talk about the cost coverage, we can talk about over here the economists. Economists, they want to have cost effectiveness. So this parochialism is the major problem over here. So in this context, rather than going for a universal health coverage at a single go, we shall take up an incremental steps towards the universal coverage. It means that the first we start with few services to a wider population, and slowly we increase the kitty of these particular services. The factors such as disease burden, the impact, cost effectiveness, affordability, feasibility, readiness of the healthcare system, all these have to be taken into consideration. And coming to Lokpal Act Amendment. So the Lokpal bill, it was passed way back in 2013. The section 44 says a public servant has to disclose his assets of his spouse and children. Here the definition of the public servant also includes the NGOs which are receiving the money from the foreign countries in tunes of greater than 10 lakhs, and also the NGOs which have got the grants from the government to the tune of 1 crore. So in this case, many of the NGOs also come under the Lokpal Act. So the second ARC also recommended the same, to bring the NGOs, civil society organizations, under the ambit of the RTI and also the Lokpal. Now, what the NGOs argue is they work on voluntary basis, and their function is nowhere similar to the governmental function. It may lead to the government extending its the control over the NGOs, and NGOs' democratic and developmental role gets affected because of this. So finally an amendment was agreed by the Union Cabinet. So as per the amendment, so the particular declaration of the assets clause will continue, but as per the procedures prescribed, that will be the new term added over there. Coming to the bridging of the digital divide. Now 2016 is a special year for e-governance because that has been declared, the World Development Report, it has focused on the digital divide and digital connectivity. The digital divide, it is not just the rural-urban divide. It is the rich-poor divide, it is the developmental divide, it is the gender divide across the countries and across the people. Now, if you see the developed and developing countries, one remarkable thing is lack of access to internet. That's why giving access to the internet is one of the sustainable developmental goals. So, in India, the access is also connected with the affordability. It is not just providing for the services, but providing them at the cheaper cost is very much important. And after affordability, the reliability of the networks and providing for the necessary, the equipment to access the networks is also critical to bring in digital inclusiveness in the country. Now you have Binami transactions. What do we call something as a Binami transaction? A person who has stored his properties in others' name, then the X has stored his properties in the name of Y. Y is called as Binami of X. Along with the Prevention of Corruption Act, Binami Transactions Prohibition Act was also passed by the Parliament. But however, how to prove a Binami? Because of this, the necessary rules are not been framed and the law is not notified till at. For that law, certain amendments are being brought in. According to this, most of the people, they create an NGO or a trust or a society as a body to store their black money. So such organizations will be declared as illegal, and they can be thoroughly searched through notices by the government. Now coming to the cloning. You all know that the Dolly is the first clone which has seen a premature death. Then there are many suspicions raised on the cloning and ethical concerns. It has led to this break in the research related to the cloning. Now the present clones which have come from the body cells of the Dolly, they have shown a very good health and a proper maturity. So in this context, now how is the cloning is going to resume is a major question. Now cloning means it's a kind of asexual reproduction in which an offspring is created from an adult cell asexually in a laboratory. Now coming to Raman Magsaysay Award, these are given to Bezawada Wilson and he is working on manual scavenging. The Manual Scavengers Prohibition Act was passed by the Parliament, but it is not in pure implementation. And added to that, the government is the major break or else major violator of its own law. Most of the manual scavengers are employed in railways and defense sectors. And added to that, a musician, Mr. T.M. Krishna, Carnatic music fellow. So this person was also awarded the Raman Magsaysay, that is for bringing in social inclusiveness in culture. Now coming to dynamic model, you know that the weather forecasting in India is a major challenge. In this case, the Ministry of Earth Sciences with Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology has developed a dynamic model to predict the patterns of monsoons. And then coming to Hillary Clinton. The Hillary Clinton, she is going to be the first woman candidate contesting from any major political party for the presidential elections. So, the Hillary Clinton is going to, provide for, as the former Secretary of State, she is talking about an inclusive agenda for America, unlike Mr. Trump, who is more talking about an exclusivist agenda. These are the articles for today. Thank you. As I said to you before, I'm traveling these days. For the next 7 days, I will be traveling. I'll try to give you the video in time, but however, if it gets delayed, don't feel bad. But I'll try my best to upload it as quick as possible. So make sure you listen to the video around the evening time.